for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He is in Washington on the line. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Is there a danger of what's happening in Syria spilling over into Turkey?
Absolutely, and Turkey's not the only place. I mean, first of all, we know that the Turks have been coordinating some of the Syrian opposition at the behest of the White House and others in the West, and so the Syrians are very aware of this, and so we should expect to see more of this. We should also expect to see other things take place, for example, in Jordan, where a good number of refugees have spilled over from the Syria conflict. And then on top of that, we have a Lebanese component where Hezbollah is now operating inside Syria. The Israelis have gone in and taken out a few targets in Syria as well. So there is a real possibility now that you could see spillover in Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, and who knows where else.
You mentioned Israel and their attack on Syria earlier. How much pressure could there be on the Turkish government to perhaps do the same?
Well, you know, it's funny. Almost a year ago, the Syrians took down a Turkish jet that was flying near the border, and at that point there was a lot of speculation that the Turks might go in and begin some sort of a conflict. So now a year later, we have another incident. Obviously, it's not proven yet that the Syrians were involved, but if in fact it is proven, I think that the Turks will be tempted yet again to go in. I think, you know, there is a likelihood, there is a warning, and I think this is really the concern right now in Washington, is that there is spillover, that things are getting out of control, that whereas once the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad was planning their steps and pragmatically looking at how to try to end their own civil conflict without allowing this spillover, it looks like they've got a bit more sloppy, that they're willing to take risks that they weren't before. This, to me, demonstrates that there is perhaps the unraveling of this regime, but what that means in terms of regional conflict is still not clear.
There have been very few hopeful signs in the Syrian conflict, but the United States and Russia agreeing to a special meeting, a conference, what do you think that could lead to?
Unfortunately, very little. At the end of the day, the Russians have been one of the top backers of the Syrian regime, other than the Iranians and perhaps to a certain extent the Chinese. It has really been the Russians that have been providing the Syrians with cover at the United Nations, with weapons. In fact, there were reports this week that they were going to sell some very advanced weaponry to the Syrians. And so the idea that somehow that they're willing to talk at the table with the Americans, you know, has given a lot of people hope, when in reality their calculus has not changed at all. Their primary goal is to be able to continue to provide weapons to certain actors in the Middle East, and their number one port for doing that is a town called Tartus. It's on the Mediterranean border with Syria, and that is where most of their weaponry is delivered, and they are defending that port at all costs.
Jonathan Schanzer of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, thank you very much.
My pleasure.